Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's much anticipated album review. So anticipated, Brett doesn't even know what it is yet. So let me share the screen with you to show you what it is we're going to be reviewing. So this is from Will CD. He's contributed before.
Novel.
He has. Won't go through all of this. So this is from our Parachutes Coldplay video album review. So basically, it's not a request as such. He did this last time as well. He just kind of told us about an album that he liked, but didn't exactly request it, but we actually turned it into a request. We're going to do the same thing again. So it says, if you don't like too much his gig-pitched notes of Chris' voice, Viva la Vida remains a different of the three first albums, because after the three first albums, who the group called the trilogy, the group wanted to make another direction, not just musically, but vocally. So this interests me already. Chris Martin wanted to make a vocal transition to use more his lower register and use less his higher notes than he have. Brett, did you write this? that he has in his three first albums. It's evident in many songs like Yes, and etc. So, and it's also more varied musically. So despite it being a rock album, there's Hispanic influences included in this album because it was inspired by the Hispanic music with the group that something to do with Latin America. So this is quite interesting. So thank you, Will CD, for all that interesting information. So already, yeah, I'm thinking I like the sound of this because it's, according to Will, we're not going to have Chris's annoying high-pitched voice. And I like the fact that this is kind of sort of has a Latino kind of feel to it, supposedly. I do like that sort of style of music, that sort of, I don't know, that feel to it, basically. So let me show you what the album itself is that Will was just mentioned there. Just a minute. So the actual album is actually called Viva la Vida, or Death and All His Friends.
Oh,
but generally just referred to as Viva la Vida. So it's the fourth album by Coldplay. We've done the first three. We're probably going to do all the Coldplay albums. I don't know how many more there are, but so we won't read too much about it because we've already read Will's kind of introduction to it. So this is it. It's 45 minutes, 49 seconds long. So it's got 10 songs on there. Track 6 includes a hidden song, Chinese Sleep Chant. In terms of songs I recognize, I'd say it's only Viva la Vida. Now, I'm sure as soon as I hear it, I'll know it, but I can't actually think exactly what it is at the moment. Brett, what about you? Any songs on here for you?
Yeah, no, like you, I only know track 7. I only know Viva la Vida, the titled album track. Don't recognise the others. Again, it might be a case if I hear them, maybe might recognise them there, but initially I don't. But I do like Viva la Vida. I do think it's. I feel like I say this all the time. It's like one of my favourite Coldplay songs. It seems to be like a list of 10 end of saying, but no, it's one of those that I do really quite like of theirs.
Okay. Yeah, we won't do the Japanese bonus track, Lost. There's another hidden track there, The Escapist, as well, actually.
Yeah. It's interesting because there's obviously a track, Lost. Track 3 is called Lost with an exclamation mark, and then the Japanese edition is Lost with a question mark.
Oh, yeah.
It would be interesting to know how different those are, really.
Just a minute, because that but that's just the same version as that on Wikipedia, so I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, what was I going to say? So yeah, I think with Coldplay so far, I think it's fair to say we have noticed quite a lot of differences between the three albums. Obviously,
Mm.
the first album was a bit we found quite boring. Second album, I can't remember. The third one I liked the best, but they all had kind of different styles to them. So, and I believe, well, from what we've read, this one should also have a very different style to it. So, yeah, quite looking forward to this. Actually, after what Will said there, it's kind of got my hopes up. What about you, Brett? Looking forward to it?
Yeah, I think just sort of what you said there, and what we've previously said, that even though we found a lot of the stuff maybe a bit same, a bit boring, they have all the albums having quite distinctive, which has been quite interesting to see. And this one particularly is going to be different. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see the sort of take on it there, because I think that's what's one of the great talents with Coldplay, is that they can take this sort of different direction, do something a bit different. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to see how this one is going to be different to the others.
Yeah, just trying to check. When is this album? When was this released? How
I think it's a
old is it?
2008.
Released for 2008. Yeah. Okay. It's still quite old. Okay. Well, there we go. We're going to go off and listen to it. We're going to be back with you guys in a few seconds to let you know what we thought of it. Okay, so we've now listened to the album. So, Brett, do you want to tell us what you thought of it?
Yeah, will do. I actually haven't got that many sort of notes. I'm going to go a bit sort of off piece this little bit. So as you and some people have been watching this is our fourth Coldplay album that we listened to, and I think one of the benefits, or one of the positives I said about what I've liked about the other ones, is how they've been quite individualized, like they've been quite distinctive. And again, I think this fourth album shows that again. I think this one does have sort of distinctive feel to it. I saw some on Wikipedia where there was a mention of sort of art rock. So we had like X and Y, which was like space rock, which I really enjoyed. This one had the term sort of art rock. And again, space rock I hadn't heard of and couldn't think how would that would be. But listen to X and Y, I totally got it. This one with art rock, again, couldn't think how this would even sound or play out. But whilst this is album, I'm going, oh yeah, this could sound like art rock, even though I have no idea what it was. So I think for me, what I liked about it, that it felt like there's a lot going on, but in a good way. It felt artistic in a way. It was a lot more upbeat and a bit more, not poppy, but a bit more upbeat than some of the other albums. And especially I think the last one we've done, Parachutes, which was completely the other end, which was very sort of somber and slow, and this one was the complete opposite. Really, there wasn't hardly any sort of really slow songs to him. And like we've done with some other albums as well, I didn't feel there was anything distinctive songs that were out from it, apart from maybe the one main song that we knew. Otherwise, they were good, well-written songs and really enjoyable to listen to. And overall, I did sort of enjoy this album. I said there was quite a few songs where it almost felt like there was like two or three songs mixed into one, really. And just to think it was that little bit more upbeat. It was a really sort of a pleasure to listen to. And like I said, it really felt like an artistic kind of album to listen to.
Okay. Yeah, lots that I agree with there. So for my notes, I've got definitely felt more modern than the previous three albums. I don't know if I'm just saying that just because I know that it was after those three albums, but I do think that the sound of it did kind of feel, I don't know, more modern, more closer to, I know it was still like 2008, I think it was, but it still kind of feels a bit more modern than those other three albums that we've done of theirs. And what I like, kind of touching on what you just said as well, what I like about the four albums that we've done of Coldplay is that they're all different sounding. They've all kind of got their own theme to it.
Yeah.
Obviously, this one was the same. It also felt very different. It felt like you know, oh yeah, this is a completely different side of Coldplay. And for me, this one was all about the unusual sounding instruments. So I didn't look on Wikipedia where it's talking about art rock, but yeah, that makes sense to me as well. And unlike Parachutes, I certainly couldn't call this one boring. However, apart from one song, a well-known song that we'll talk about, I am struggling to find any songs that I really like, and I think that's quite a common theme with a lot of albums we do. We kind of quite like the albums, but kind of struggle to really say, oh, yeah, I really like this song, I really like that song. To me, it was kind of more of like an experimental album rather than an album that contained a lot of released hits. I know there were at least 2 songs that were released. There may have been more. I don't know if you saw Wikipedia. But yeah, it just felt quite experimental, this album, or you could say, I guess, maybe arty, like art rock. So yeah, it was, as I often say, quite interesting to listen to. But in terms of negatives, struggling to find a song that I really liked, I guess. So let's go through.
They're very fair comments.
Each track then. So number 1 was Life in Technicolor. So I've described it as sort of light instrumentals, you know, nothing too heavy. But then it did start to get slightly more rocky towards the end. No lyrics to this one. Kind of, I suppose you could call it a nice introduction to the album. There was a slight whoa, 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 whoa sound, like a voice going whoa, whoa towards the end. But other than that, yeah, there were no words to it. And I don't really have much more to say other than that.
No, I don't think you really can, to be honest. I kind of put it as sort of a bit like XY. It had that sort of space rock kind of feel, but then as you said, yeah, it does get a bit more sort of rock. I don't think rocky is the right word. I guess upbeat is the closest thing to say. Got a bit more upbeat towards the end. I like this because it's weird. So normally in the middle of the album, this would be like an interlude type of song in there. I don't know why, because we always talk about sort of the first song on the album being quite important in some regards, because that's setting the tone of the album, and it shouldn't be like an introduction, but effectively it is. And I don't know why more albums don't. There probably are loads of albums that do, but this felt like a real nice, actual proper sort of introduction into the album, which I found really good, and it probably fits in with the whole sort of art rock kind of thing. So I was surprised more albums we've listened to haven't done that. Yeah, nothing special about it, but I said it was just a real nice sort of introduction to what we're about to go into, really. So yeah, full applause there for Coldplay.
Yeah, and I think the second track was a continuation of the ending of the first track. So Cemeteries of London, I've described this, or certainly at the beginning, as just storytelling. And then the song did sort of get going more, but it still felt like storytelling. And I put here, for some reason, kind of is a little bit like Bruce Springsteen, even though it's nothing like Bruce Springsteen at all. So it's kind of a contradiction, but maybe because of the storytelling part. I think with Bruce Springsteen, he also sort of tells stories in his songs. But I've put it as a style that we haven't come across so far on any of the previous 3 albums. But I still wasn't so keen on it as an actual song, the sound of it. I still, wasn't in love with it, but it was something, different, which I did appreciate.
It's interesting about the storytelling type. I haven't really sort of put those notes down, but that kind of makes sense. And I think there's actually a few tracks probably which have that same sort of feel. Now, whether that's sort of the art rock kind of thing, where it's not trying to be like a song, but more like express something in terms of like a story. But other main sort of note here is that even though it's nothing that we've heard already of Coldplay, it still sounded very Coldplay-like. So much so when I was listening to it, even my other half, she was like, "Oh, you listening to Coldplay? You've not done Coldplay already?" Because you can tell straight away it was Coldplay. Because obviously the first track there was no singing to it. And then once we got to the second track, yeah, I went, yeah, it's the fourth one we're doing there. And obviously this moment, okay, obviously it does sound very, very Coldplay. But again, sort of had this sort of upbeat, sort of interesting sort of background tune to it as well. I did kind of like it. Like I said, it felt a bit different. Again, not enough to be like, wow, it's blown me away, or definitely put it on a playlist or something. But I enjoyed listening to it. Maybe it's the fact because you said that it was like telling a story. Maybe it was because of the upbeat bit there, or something a bit different. But yeah, I kind of liked it in a way.
Okay. So the next one was Lost. I'll describe this as church music in the background, the sort of typical music you'd hear in a church, and the sounds kind of didn't really fit together. This sort of all the different, because there was quite a lot going on with this one, but in the same way, at the same time, I didn't actually mind it. Kind of, again, maybe I'm contradicting myself a bit here by saying it didn't really go together, but I still kind of didn't mind it. A bit of a weird one, this, and found it quite hard to describe this song. I suppose you could say it was quite arty.
Yeah, I think it's very, and I think we'll quite say for the lot of tracks there, and I kind of agree with that. So there was, I put heads on my notes, a sort of a weird kind of beat to this one. The lyrics, even though I didn't quite pick them up properly, seem quite weird, but I think generally Coldplay lyrics are never normally make that much sense in some regards there. But it also, in comparison to the previous one, this didn't seem like Coldplay at all. I know you normally don't like Chris Martin when he does this sort of high singing, and from what I remember this one, I don't think he had much or any of that there at all. It was sort of just a sort of standard singing kind of thing from there. Again, like the previous one, liked it. Maybe not as much as the one previously, but I think the best way to say it is I didn't dislike it. Something a bit different, but definitely again wasn't like a standout song. Definitely wasn't the best one on the album, but I thought it was all right. I thought there was something to it.
Okay. So song number 4 was 42. So had a kind of slow, solemn start, then sort of took me by surprise. I thought, wow, sudden change up. Suddenly became, quite rocky. I mean, when I say rocky by, Coldplay standards. But now without any lyrics, but now the lyrics have begun. It sounds a little bit indie, like sort of British indie type sort of music. And I just put unusual. Like it's kind of, again, just an interesting song to listen to, something quite different, unexpected.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, different, something unusual, artistic, arty pop, art rock, whatever. Sums this song up completely there. I was more interested with the title. So I know 42 famously is like in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where they ask this computer and it's the answer to everything. What's the answer to everything in the entire world? And it's 42. So I was interested you said about sort of went indie. So yeah, so we had this sort of one part of the song and then it changes. I think it was about, I think I've put here halfway through, where when like sort of I put here sort of 70s rock kind of thing. So I put Pink Floyd, it quite sounded like from there. I went back to do a little bit of research just to see what was the title about. And it turns out that 42 is just a favourite number of Chris Martin's. And for the last 2 or 3 years, he'd been wanting to write a song that had no chorus and no verse. And this was the song he ended up doing, which kind of had that, which is weird because I felt like there was a bit singing about ghosts, which felt almost quite catchy and felt like a chorus. But yeah, I probably want to go back and listen again and see if I can really see this thing about sort of no chorus or no verse. And again, it goes back to, being a bit experimental, a bit arty with the album and this particular song. And I think that pretty much sums up from there. Again, I thought it was all right. It didn't stand out. Wouldn't necessarily put it definitely on a playlist, but I enjoyed it.
Okay. So the next one was Lovers in Japan. So had a nice jolly start, very lively, upbeat song, but somehow feels slightly subdued as well. So I think is often the case with Coldplay. And then you're going to have to help me out here because I was just doing this on Spotify. Was there a hidden track on this one?
Right. So, because again, there's loads of different songs like this where it's sort of almost like halfway through changed. But I think you're right. For this particular one, this where it changed up became sort of a totally different song and classed as like a hidden track, even though it's right in the middle of the album. It seems very unusual to do that. So yeah, it technically why they just didn't put it as a different song on the album, I don't know. But yeah, technically it was classed as a hidden track. It just felt like a different part of the song halfway through.
Well, whatever it was slow and steady. The singing was very quiet and a nice little number. It was just nice and quite nice, that one, actually.
Yeah. Again, really like this one. Again, it stood out for those reasons you've already probably just said there already. Again, not enough for me to go, oh wow, this is really a standout song on the album. I've put here the band The Doves. The starter song kind of reminds me of that. And again, I think it was that sort of British indie kind of feel to it. I was quite enjoying the lyrics, what I picked up from it as well. There's a few mentions of bits in Japan. But then the standard thing, obviously, then changes. Again, I thought it was about halfway through. It probably was a bit later on. And again, it felt like a totally different song. And the reason being, it was meant to be like a different song. And as you say, it was just done quietly. It was just sort of piano play. It was just a nice sort of, I think ideally that would have been really good as sort of the last track of the album. Even though we'll get on to the last track, which I thought was quite good anyway. But this potentially would have been a good end to a particular album for himself. So yeah, good, nice song. Just again, didn't wow me in any particular way.
Okay, so then we had Yes. So the instrumentals took me by surprise here. Very speaky type of lyrics, rather than real singing. Doesn't sound like Coldplay. Then we had like Middle Eastern instrumentals. And again, it was another peculiar song. Felt quite, what's the word? It felt quite experimental, as most of these songs have done. Different singing and instrumental parts to it. So, yeah, different kind of parts here. And then again, it seemed to stop and another track started again. I don't know if this is a hidden track as well. This was something completely different. So this was quite a rocky start. And then the lyrics were completely drowned out by the sound. Although the lyrics did sound quite repetitive anyway. I don't really think there was too much to the lyrics. It was all about the instrumentals. Has a beat to it. It was okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I could say anything more different to what you've said there at all. The only things I might add is that for me, the start of it kind of had sort of like the Beatles feel to it, but like Beatles in their later stage, in what would be classed as their sort of experimental stage there. And I know we kind of said all these songs could be classed as experimental, this whole album in a way experimental, but I know we always I always like to sort of mention it. I have put, as you said there, this felt the most experimental probably out of all of them so far, just with that sort of Arabian bit there, and the fact it didn't sound like Coldplay at all, felt like it could be a different band completely. And again, as you said, we have this sort of, it almost felt like a second different song, again probably because it was meant to be, again like a hidden track, and again like really artistic, really nice. Again, probably not as good as some of the other ones we've had, and it all follows the same sort of what we've been listening to already.
Okay. What, have you got anything to say about the second part of it, or was just you just saw it as kind of a continuation of the first song?
Yeah, so I saw it, even though it was distinctly very different. Again, from what I remember, it didn't have any words to it. It was just sort of nice sort of music to kind of listen to. Again, like I'm treating them almost like as individual tracks in some regards. There's no real sort of difference. They were nice to listen to, but not enough to be like, okay, wow, yeah, I need to put this on a playlist. But I think it just works with the album.
Okay, then we had Viva la Vida. So I knew this was a big hit, and I think I kind of knew the sound of it in my head, but I was just kind of needed confirmation of it. And then, yeah, straight away, yeah, I know this. This is what I thought it was. I actually quite like this one. It's quite a good song. I'm not going to get carried away and say it's a really good, but I've always kind of thought it was okay. Like I've said to you before, that I kind of listen to Coldplay songs if they come on the radio, but apart from Yellow, I'm not a huge fan of any of them. But they just kind of tend to be, relatively good, solid songs. So this is one of them. Interested with the lyrics as well. I'm not very good with lyrics, but I definitely heard there "Long Live the King," which is quite apt at the moment.
That's very true. Yeah.
And the only other thing I can add is that the instrumentals feel quite dramatic on this song. But yeah, it's a good solid song.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a standout song on the album. It kind of reminds me of the same like Yellow and Parachutes, where it just stands out so much more from us. And whether because it's the main release song that you hear more often, you recognise it, and it naturally is going to do that. But I think I like to think even if it wasn't a release song, I still can imagine it would stand out still from this album. I've always liked it. And still listen to an album, still really do like it as well. But as I said, I never knew sort of the history behind it. So obviously it translates as Long Live Life. And apparently it was a Mexican artist who did a painting with that title. And there's a bit more something to do with that, really. She female artist who suffered through a lot of pain, really, and expressed this a lot through paintings and stuff. So it's sort of history on that, really. And it's actually been covered quite a few times. Obviously, one of my favourite bands, Petra Boys, have done a cover of this one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they have indeed. I'm not going to say it's better than Coldplay's. I think the Coldplay is the original one there. And some other bands that we've listened to, funny enough, Weezer have done a cover of this. And apparently Rose from Blackpink, who I know you're a big fan of, has done a cover. Has done a cover as well. But there is a cover by a guy called Darwin, which I've heard before. He's like a Swedish boy pop singer. And his cover is quite good. I quite enjoy it. His one makes it a bit more sort of poppy, which you might probably enjoy. So yeah, listen, good song. It is a standout song. I'll say now it is my favourite song on the album. And as I said, it is the standout song.
Okay. So the next one was Violet Hill. So I was kind of intrigued about this one because it sounded the title sounded familiar, but I wasn't sure if I was confusing it with something else. But I wasn't. I knew it straight away. Well, first of all, I didn't because kind of a lot of nothing happened so far. Is what I put. Like the first few seconds was like, I don't know, there was some sound, but nothing was really happening. And I was like, as soon as it really started, like, oh yeah, I know this one too. I felt this actually sounds more like Phil Collins, because the way the voice is recorded in this one or something. There's something about it that kind of has that kind of like distance between you, kind of like echoey feel, kind of like Phil Collins. Like I'll say it now, I don't like the song. I think there are better songs on the album. The song had then changed up, and it was just some singing with no backing sound through to the end. So this was definitely a released track, because like I say, I recognised it, but don't like this one. This is one of their probably least favourite release songs of theirs. Don't know really why. I just don't really like it.
Yeah, I can probably see why. So, listen to it, and as it was playing, I felt I kind of recognise this. And then, so obviously, it was a release track, but I don't think I really recognise it as a release track. I felt like I recognised it where it's been on like a TV program or something, and maybe that might be the case, but it did feel sort of familiar. It is probably the slowest / saddest song on the album, so at least there was something a little bit different, I suppose. Opposite to you, though, I did kind of like it, whether it's because I kind of recognised it, but I do agree, and I do feel it's probably a song that you kind of need to maybe get to know potentially, or listen to a few times, or get it there. But I think it was that bad. I do agree, though, it's definitely not as good as some of the other songs on the album. But again, I thought it was all right. And we would definitely like to listen to that again, really.
Okay. So then we had Strawberry Swing. This was an interesting one, very arty. I put like American / Irish instrumentals, an American sounding voice as well. Certainly at the beginning, kind of felt like that. The instrumentals were continuous for the most part of the song and quite hard to ignore. So like I couldn't think of a better way to explain it. Maybe hard to ignore wasn't the best phrase to use, but like it was very prominent. And then we had the guitar that came in towards the end, and that kind of, I guess, replaced those strong instrumentals. It was all right. This one, it was an interesting one.
Yeah, again, I definitely can add more to that. That I sort of put here again, really sort of artistic kind of feel to it. It felt like it, compared to the others where it felt a bit artistic and trying stuff, it kind of felt like work. This one for me personally, for some reason, I didn't quite enjoy it that much. I felt it was a nice tune. It was okay, but maybe against the usual, we say a lot, as we're getting towards the end of the album, if something's been quite repetitive, suddenly it's the same old, and it just feel, well, I've kind of heard some of this already, and it's just probably not as good, or just switching off from it a little bit. Very chilled song. Again, okay to listen to, but I think maybe just getting a little bit possibly repetitive for me at this stage, potentially, in comparison to other songs. So, all right, but definitely better ones on the album.
And then we finished off with Death and All His Friends. So it had a slow, solemn start, started to liven up. I felt this one doesn't sound like typical Coldplay. I actually felt that the singing actually spoiled the song. I preferred it without the singing. The singing was kind of shouty like, and I don't like sort of shouty type of singing. And then I put here, is this a hidden track at the end? Because it kind of stopped and went on to something completely different. It was almost like a kind of voice in my head, almost kind of like dreamy sounding. And I've even put here, could this be considered spa music? And then, yeah, that was it.
Yeah, so I actually quite like this one. And again, very artistic, sort of a lot going on. But like what I was saying, compared to like the other songs, like a lot going on, but it kind of works all together really. It felt very, very good sort of end of album track. So again, it sort of goes off and then comes on to like a different song from there. I've also put reference here, again, feels very quite space rock as well, which obviously quite enjoyed. But yeah, I thought this was actually a really good sort of, and again, I felt it was a good song to sum up the album, like the song 42. I felt this one as well. She had the mixture of different kind of sounds in there. Felt quite artistic, and it was just kind of enjoyable to listen to.
Okay. So, yeah, if we're summing up, I would say, I think, like I say, for a lot of albums, I kind of enjoyed listening to it. It had me like intrigued by it, because I never quite knew what was going to come next. Unlike, say, Parachutes, which we did, which was kind of quite samey and a little bit boring. So yeah, in that regards, I liked it. I did like it. Yeah, lots of interesting things going on. It was, again, a different side to Coldplay. However, it was just missing that really good song. Okay, we had Viva la Vida, which is quite a good song, but I already knew it. I was hoping maybe I could find another song on there that I would really like, but unfortunately that wasn't to be. So still, all in all, it was a relatively enjoyable album for me.
Yeah, like you, very enjoyable album to listen to. It's really hard to think, so I was trying to think, well, if I had to rank, where would I put them in? It's weird, maybe because it's the most recent one listened to. I did feel, compared to the others, there was probably the most songs I kind of enjoyed the most overall in comparison to a lot of the other albums. But as you said, I think it was missing just a couple of sort of maybe big hitters just to really elevate it to a different level. But I appreciate the art artistic side that we keep referring to a lot in this one, and felt that a little bit more upbeat and not so dour compared to maybe some of the other albums. So I do think it was a good one. It could be up there potentially as one of the best out of the 4 we've listened to. But it's weird. I really would love to take the stuff I've enjoyed from this album, stuff I enjoyed from X and Y, even from Parachutes was probably, for me, maybe my least favourite. There's still stuff from there I would like to take from there. Probably the track Yellow on its own. And the, what was that, Russian Blood to the Head as well. They all, I said, this was really good, that they've all been so distinctive and enjoyable to listen to in their own way. And I feel like taking a bit from each of them to make one really good Coldplay album could be the way forward. So yeah, I said, enjoyable to listen to, a bit more upbeat. And I said, it hasn't put me off Coldplay. Haven't found anything I'll take on to be put onto a sort of individual playlist in comparison maybe to a couple of other albums. But yeah, a good artistic album.
Yeah, for me, out of the 4, X and Y is definitely still my favourite, because even that was the first one we did, so it's quite a long time ago. But there was definitely some songs on there that I hadn't heard before that I actually quite liked. So yeah, I don't know where I rank this. Probably maybe second, maybe third. Parachutes. Yeah, we didn't. Well, this is the thing, because with Parachutes, didn't like it, but there was Yellow on there, which is my favourite Coldplay song. So I don't know.
Yeah, so it's a really hard one to do, and maybe that is a testament to Coldplay, the fact that they're all kind of on par-ish for their own particular reason. Like X and Y, I think I did obviously really enjoy. There was obviously songs from there that were good enough to go on keep referring to on a playlist. But I do also remember on X and Y there were a couple of songs that I really didn't quite like, even in comparison to this one, where I felt like most of them I did. So yeah, it's a real tough one. But like I said, I think their best testament is the fact that they're all individual and all got their pluses and minuses for their own reasons, really. So that's, I think, the best compliment I can give Coldplay.
Okay, well, that's it from us. Keep the requests coming, because we're in desperate need of album review requests. And we'll see you again for the next one. Take care, guys. Goodbye.